Welcome back, everybody, to DissedMedia, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And today, my guest is going to be Debbie Fay. Debbie is a founder of Bespeak Presentation Solutions, where she has been coaching, consulting, and training entrepreneurs, executives, and everyday people on presentations since 2006. Her clients include BNY Mellon Bank, the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, Sabra Dipping Products, and Houston Logistics. Debbie is author of Nail It, Create and Deliver Presentations That Connect, Compel, and Convince, and she is a contributing writer to Forbes and Huffington Post. She's also a business owner, founder, author, speaker, and she believes that what people are often taught about presentations is either incomplete or just plain wrong. This is a conversation I am very anxious to get into because, boy, I'll tell my own presentation stories here in a bit. But Debbie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Ben. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, thank you for joining. It was good catching up before we got rolling here. Um, and I want to say, as a matter of fact, there's my clue right there. I have a really bad presentation habit of ahs and ums. So I'm hoping through the course of what we get through today, maybe you'll give me some tips to eliminate that bad habit of mine.
Can I
But
can I can we talk about that quickly? Because
absolutely, I'm happy
this is
anytime.
a this is the perfect example. The truth is, everybody ums or uhs or you knows or I means occasionally. We all do it.
Occasionally. Oh
That
boy, I
is
edit the
not.
heck out of these podcasts.
Oh, it's only an issue. It's only a problem, and it is a problem if you're peppering your sentences with these non-words, and ah, or what I find my children's generation does with like.
Yeah.
If every third word is like, or after every third word you're umming or eyeing or you know or I mean, that's a problem and you need to address it. And we can absolutely talk about how you cure that because it's easy to do. But it is not a problem if you're occasionally umming or eyeing or you knowing or I meaning. Not a problem. Audiences are very forgiving.
I will say, because I edit these episodes, it is one of those things that stands out to me. And every time I record a new episode, it is one of the things that I have really obsessively tried to pay attention to. Do you know? Oh my gosh. When I'm looking at the transcript and I'm editing these, I just like, why do I say so much? I fall into that so often, it kills me. So I'm very very anxious to get into the thick of things, but I also want to just take a moment and step back because you've been doing this work for quite a while, and it sounds like based on your background, you've coached a lot of people and you've given a lot of presentations and helped people get better. If you don't mind, can we take a moment and just kind of get to how you got to what you do today and what led into this work and the book that you have.
Thank you for opening that door for me to share. First of all, I was involved in theater from the time I could walk and talk. My mother used to say if she would open the refrigerator door, I would perform for the light, which is really embarrassing. Whenever I say that, I start blushing. It's borderline humiliating to think about. But I had a love of performing. When I was tiny, before my father would go to work in the morning, he would put a record on the record player, a musical like My Fair Lady or West Side Story or Camelot or The Sound of Music, and he would sing and dance around the living room. And then he would go to work, and I would put the record back on, and I would sing and dance around the living room. So, I mean, this is a lifelong thing. I do love to be on stage, but equally as much, I love to get other people on stage. And that's something that I've been doing since I was a little girl. We moved a lot when I was a kid, but when we lived in the Midwest, we lived in Pittsburgh and we lived in Michigan for our vacations. We would go to where my parents grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and we would stay with our cousins. My mother's she's no longer with us. She was an unidentical twin. We would go to her sister's house, and I would walk in the door, walk in the living room, put The Sound of Music on the record player, and immediately get my sister and brother and my cousins enrolled in a performance of Sound of Music. They were my first unwilling coachees, these poor people. And then, of course, my parents and my aunt and uncle would have to sit on the couch and watch this production. So I've been at this forever. And when my children were in elementary school, I started with another woman. She and I ran a talent show at my children's elementary school for 7 years.
Oh,
That
nice.
upwards of 150 people were involved with. The children, the teachers did an act, the dads did an act. The other parents were involved in the sound and the lights. We used to do it at the high school. It was nuts and fabulous. And so I've always loved that. When my first husband, who has his own business, he had a biennial conference, and I was helping with that. And I begged him for years, please let me coach your team on their presentations. And he finally acquiesced. And so I would help his team build their presentations. And then the morning before the conference kicked off, we would have a rehearsal. So this is something that I've been at in some form or fashion for my whole life. And then in 2006, I was ready to launch a full-blown career for various reasons that I'm not going to bore your audience with. And
It's
and
not
then,
boring. That's,
well,
that's what we're here to
coming,
talk about.
yeah, well, let's just put it this way, Ben. I found myself a single mother with 3 young children, and my first husband had traveled, was an is and is still in international business, so he literally was never home.
Yeah.
And we had a very traditional marriage, was fine with me. I always assumed that at some point when the kids were all in school full time, that I would create some kind of nonprofit and run that, because we would have enough money to live on, and this was always my sensibility, right? Then we would give back in some way. And then I found myself single, and knew that I was now going to have a career and be self-supporting. And there were 2 roads. One was I could become a high school history teacher, which is what I'd gone to college for and just never ended up doing. So I live in Connecticut. So I got myself certified to teach high school in the state of Connecticut because I had gone to Michigan State. So I wasn't certified in Connecticut. Did that, which was no easy feat, by the way. Then did a long-term sub gig at a middle school here, and I was ready to go because I figured if I were a teacher, I would have the same holidays as my children, the same
Yeah.
breaks as my children. I could still get my youngest, who was in 2nd grade, maybe he was in 3rd grade by then, on the bus and off the bus every day. It was the most logical solution. And I want to say, had it worked out that I was a history teacher, I would have been very happy. I'm somebody who loves to work. It would have afforded me the opportunity. I probably could have directed the high school,
You would have been
musical,
history
right?
slash theater teacher.
Exactly. It would have worked out. It would have worked out. But as the saying, man plans and God laughs, as it worked out, after I had done all this work to be a teacher and gotten great reviews for my long-term sub gig, there was not a position in Bridgeport, which is the city that is next to the town we live in, nor was there a position in my town, nor was there a position in the town to the south of us. And I could not commute farther than that because of my little people I had to get on the bus.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, okay, that was the safe, sensible alternative. My other alternative was my dream. And my dream for about a decade had been to be a public speaking coach. I so wanted to be a public speaking coach.
If you don't
But
mind, can I ask you
sure.
why? Why? Like what did you see in other people that you said this can be better? They need
Oh my gosh. Oh, first of all, everybody that I had seen at my husband's biennial conference who was speaking, the people I was working with, one of them, God bless her, was terrified of speaking. Even, some of the people at my first husband's business were good. A couple of them were good. He is great, by the way. He's a great speaker. But, many of them weren't. And they really benefited from my help. And even in the talent show, the woman who we referred to each other, I was the director, she was the producer, she would never speak. So when the two of us had to get on stage together, it was always going to be me. It was never going to be her. And that just broke my heart. It just broke my heart. People have messages that they really want to share. And I want to help them share those messages. That was my initial motivation.
that
And
I love that because I'll never forget, and this was decades ago when I was early in my career. I had to give a presentation in front of our senior leadership, and I was, just barely above the entry level role, and here I was speaking to directors, and I came in and yeah, even before that, I will say, I remember when I had to say something at a school assembly and they handed me the mic and my voice was quivering and I was shaking and my legs were all jittery. Like it really, I still to this day profoundly remember that moment. And then fast forward to when I was doing the presentation in front of those directors, again, hearing me now, the fact that I do a podcast and broadcast it all over the world, and I'm not shy behind a mic anymore, and I have no issue standing in front of a group of people and saying something, and hopefully it comes out well. But it didn't start that way for sure. I imagine, as you were talking, you're saying these people they get up and they present and oh my gosh, like there is nothing worse than I can stand if somebody they're going to give a presentation, the first thing they do is stand up, you see the back of their head and they just read slides
oh
one
God.
after the other. It's just like, oh, nothing more terrible than that. I'd rather have somebody who can't speak and his voice is quivering than just listen to them read slides all day.
And by the way, when they do that, you're thinking to yourself, okay, you could have sent me this via email and I could be
I could
sitting
have
in
read
my
it myself.
pajamas. Yeah, you can read. This is, you've just mentioned one of my biggest, one of the biggest things I get to help presenters with because I've taken myself to school on what makes a great visual, what makes a great slide, and what is just a huge audience distraction. And exactly what you have just described, Ben, slides that are full of content are a disservice to the audience because human beings cannot read and listen at the same time.
Yeah, that's
You
a
you
very
can read
important point.
along with someone, certainly, but then you as the speaker are redundant. You are unnecessary, as you're saying. You can read it. You don't need the speaker to read it to you, but those slides can be used productively to help you get your message across in a way that is more impactful, more engaging, and more memorable. So it's not the fault of PowerPoint, it's the fault of humans.
Yeah, one of the things, because I do teach and we do presentations, and one of the things I often tell people is you are the presentation. And the only thing we want on the slides, these are just points to keep you on track, but they're not the presentation. You're the presentation. And the number of times you get the paragraph and then they want to read it word for word. Like there's a famous video. I don't know how famous it is, but it was on fire on YouTube a couple years ago. This guy just talking about like all of these bad PowerPoint habits that people have. And I see them all the time. Unless you go to the real high level presentations where, it's maybe some big seminar, things like that, you get away from it a little, even though I have still seen it there too. One of the things you talk about is that there are things that presenters must do that a lot of people don't talk about. We've talked about a couple of them so far. But what are some others that people really need to, pay attention to?
So let me start, if I may, at the beginning. What's
Yeah.
really important to begin with. And the first thing that a good presenter must do is, this is one of my Bespeak isms, is to turn their focus 180 degrees. And by that, I mean, before they create an outline of their presentation, they should sit themselves in the audience's seat and have a good long think about their audience. What does their audience care about? What are their audience's goals? What are their audience's problems? What's keeping the audience up at night? How much does the audience know about the speaker's topic? I always say you should be able to sit down and write down 5 reasons why your subject matter is important to them. Because if you can't think of 5 reasons why it's important to them, and really it's not important to them, maybe they don't know about your subject matter, they're not familiar with it, you might then want to begin your presentation explaining to your audience why the subject matter is so important to them. So that's the first thing. The first most important thing is the audience focus. Building a presentation with your audience in mind. I told you, Ben, before we started recording this, that I listened to your podcast, and you had a guest on a while back by the name of Aaron, and I loved something that he was saying, which was that when you think about what you're giving to others, it takes a lot of the nervousness away. It takes away the desire to be perfect. It takes away the fear that some people aren't going to like what you have to say, because you're imbued with the importance of your message to your audience. And I have found in the almost 20 years now that I've been doing this work, that when I share that with a terrified presenter, that will really help him or her to forget about themselves and focus on the message and the importance of getting that message across to their audience. So that's the first really important thing that a presenter must do to be successful, is to focus on the audience.
Yeah, it was funny because again, we didn't record us, just kind of as we were getting going here, but you had some very nice things to say. Thank you very much about the podcast. But you asked me like, what do I put into it? Kind of what makes me want to do this. And first, I love the medium. I love having the opportunity to speak with people who love talking about what they love doing. Like, to me, that's just where the learning happens, is just hearing what other people have to say about the things that they love talking about. But I put a lot of focus and attention on this. I try to make this podcast the kind of podcast I like listening to. And I love podcasts. And I also I'm very critical of myself. I evaluate it. I listen back to it. I see where the improvements can be made. And it was funny because just recently I had to dig into my archives. I was trying to find something and I was listening to some of the early episodes of this podcast. And I'm like, wow, how it's changed, how it's evolved into what it is that we do today. You don't get there unless you practice, unless you put it out there. You mentioned that embarrassment factor. Well, you got to throw that out the window. Like, don't get so caught up in what other people think about your attempt to get better at something. Like, if you got people in your life who are making fun of you because you're trying to get better at something, you're hanging around the wrong people. You don't need those
Totally.
people in your life.
Totally. In fact, actually, Ben, I'm in the middle of writing my second book, which is about starting my business. And one of the things I recommend is you can't listen to the naysayers. When I was starting my business, I had someone who's very dear to me say to me, public speaking coaching? I don't know if you can make a living doing that. Swear to God.
You
And
can
I
make
had
a
people
living
say,
opening up toys on YouTube. Like, you can make a living doing a lot of things.
well, 20 years ago, I don't know if you'd have been able to make a living doing that. Maybe. Yeah, I didn't know. But, if you think about it, somebody saying something like that to you when you're a mom of three who never imagined starting her own business. This was not in my that wasn't me. What I wanted to do was be a public speaking coach. What I wanted to do was help people get on stage. What I wanted to do was help people get their messages out. Wasn't somebody who thought, I'm going to start my own business one day. Oh my God. But really, to your point, you cannot listen to I don't think that's going to work. You can't listen to those people
No.
because you'll never get out of your room. You won't get out of your closet. But the other thing I think you just said that is so key is that you were always working on making the podcast better. That it was a practice, right? It's a part of your life's work. I am the same way. Let me tell you something. As obsessed as I am with creating great visuals, great PowerPoint slides, when I look back at slides that I created 20 years ago, they weren't verbose. They were not verbose. I was still eating my own cooking, as one of my former clients says. But let me just say it this way. They weren't what they are now. And I'm sure 10 years from now, the slides I have now will not look anywhere near as good to me as what I have 10 years from now, because we're always working on getting better, right?
Yeah.
On
It's
doing
an
it
iterative
better.
process.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things. See, there's my again. I listen for it. I listen for it. Anyway,
Yeah, but wait a minute. I got to stop you, because the way you just used it makes sense in conversation.
sure. I guarantee you, we're gonna have people listening to this, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, there's another one," only because now I've highlighted it. But that's okay
Okay.
because I'm paying attention myself as well.
Yes, you
But
are. I can tell. Yeah. In a good way. In a good way. You're listening to what's coming out of your mouth. Let me just say, you're in the habit of doing it, which is an excellent, excellent habit. The reason why, I don't know, this isn't the reason why people and I mean, the reason why it perpetuates is because they are not listening to what comes out of their mouth.
it goes back to what I was saying before about I try to make this something I want to listen to, and I think again, I'm not a professional producer, and I'm sure other people will hear things. But at the most, when you're starting out, when you're getting things rolling, you should at least have your own kind of internal standard, your own internal compass, and then try and best that. and then scan the environment, find other people that you admire, and try and be as good as they are. And just that simple little practice, I think, builds upon getting better. But I will say, getting past those nerves, getting past that embarrassment factor, that is the tough part.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely, would love
So,
to.
so astoundingly to somebody like me who's such a huge ham, public speaking remains one of the five biggest fears. And I think part of it is, and this is a guess on my part, this is not based on anything I've read or a study that I've done myself. I haven't. I feel like part of it is from what happens to us when we're very young, when we have to stand up in front of our classmates and give a presentation with all eyes on us is a very unnerving thing to go through and can be formative, can be leave a mark. The research I've read a ton of books about nerves and public speaking. The research I've read that I love is from Michael Motley. And he has written short books about nerves and public speaking. And he did research around this phenomenon. And I love the research that he did because, number one, it's based in a measurable phenomenon, which is heart rate. What he found was that all of us, whether we are nervous presenters or not nervous presenters, the few minutes before we begin speaking, our heart rate accelerates. Then the first few minutes we are speaking, it accelerates more. But then after that, it decelerates. For the nervous speaker, the heart rate can accelerate to a very uncomfortable level, to I think 185 beats per minute, which doesn't feel good. And when a
Yeah.
heart rate accelerates that much, there are other things that happen to our bodies. We sweat, we shake, cheeks flush, knees knock, etc.
Yeah. Been there.
Right? Sure. And the nervous presenter tends to stay at that level longer. And even as the heart rate decelerates, it doesn't decelerate to a level that is comfortable for the speaker. Compared to the not nervous speaker, whose heart rate accelerates, not as high in any way, shape, or form as the nervous speaker, accelerates a little bit more, but then after the first few minutes of the presentation, the not nervous speaker's heart rate decelerates quickly and deeply. Not to a heart rate that one would have were you laying on your couch watching television, nor should it, because when you're in front of a group of people, your heart rate should be elevated a bit. But then it decelerates to a level that's supremely comfortable. Now, couple things that are super interesting about this research that Motley did. Number one, he determined after interviewing nervous speakers, the reason why their heart rate stayed accelerated is because they were in their own heads. They were speaking, but there was a dialogue going on in their head that was saying things like, I'm terrible at this. I can't believe I got talked into doing this again. I stink at this. I can't believe I'm doing this, etc., etc. So in their heads, the pronoun is I and me. Wrong focus, wrong pronoun. As long as they were talking to themselves in that way, their heart rate was going to stay elevated. If you're thinking about how much you hate it and how bad you are at it, and you just said this stupid thing, and why did you just say that stupid thing? Of course, your heart rate's going to stay elevated. If you don't think about yourself and you focus on your audience, which is where your focus is supposed to be anyway, your heart rate is going to decelerate because that's what it wants to do.
It's interesting. I naturally just have a very calm heart rate. It drives my wife crazy. No matter the circumstance. And I've kind of done some practice at that to just kind of be calm. Like in a crisis, I will never be the one running around with my hair on fire. I will always be
Same.
the one like figuring out what we need to get done in the most calm way. Not to say that internally I'm not sitting there having my moment, but I'm not that in my mind, in my rationale. I'm like, well, that's not going to solve anything. So no
Mm.
use in doing that. Like, let's just figure out what we need to get done, and we'll get it done. By the way, I've even had this happen to me during podcasts and shows that I've released, even for this podcast, where I started off wrong, or it started off, I mentioned before we got started mispronouncing somebody's name. One time I got into somebody's backstory and my notes were not right, or my notes crashed in the middle of me talking, and yeah, like heat. I start beating up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I hope on camera they can't see the fact that I'm sweating right now because I've just totally blown this interview. So it does still happen. I'm not saying that I'm immune to it, but at the same time, I just, I guess my approach is I want people to feel comfortable. I'm not here trying to tell you that I'm I don't know who was an intense interviewer. I'm trying to think of that gentleman from 60 Minutes that everybody, when they saw him coming, they were like, "Oh no, not him."
Oh, Mike Wallace?
Mike Wallace, yeah,
Is that
I'm
who it
no Mike
was? Yeah.
Wallace. Like, I'm not here to grill you. We're here to have fun and talk about some fun things. So, but even still, like my nerves in those moments when I mess up, you try not to let it show, but you do your best.
But and here's the other thing is I totally get it. We're gonna mess up. Audiences are forgiving. The other really important thing to keep in mind is a presentation, and this is what Motley says, and I could not agree more. A presentation is not a performance, it's a communication. Much
Yeah.
like this podcast is. This is one to one. You're not performing, you're sharing, you're asking questions, we're having a conversation. To the audience, in a presentation, even, they are taking in what the presenter is sharing with them. The presenter is not meant to be, and listen, there are people who do what I do who may disagree with me. That's fine. I
See that
have
right
coached.
there? That's exactly the approach that I even take. It's like, you know what? Maybe you won't like it. Like, go do your own show.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because this thing takes work, and I'm happy with it. So whatever.
Right? Good for you. It's like when people say to me, yeah, I see this all the time, executive presence, executive presence. Maybe it's just the phrasing. In fact, I may be doing for some of my clients what others would describe as executive presence. I just think that's a bunch of malarkey. You can't, it's really, really important that you are authentic
Yes. Yeah.
when
People
you
want
are
to know that you're a
presenting.
genuine person.
Absolutely, because this is another thing I learned when I was first starting out, when I was reading and reading and reading. A gentleman, oh gosh, Bert Decker. Bert Decker, uh, who founded a famous presentations coaching company out in San Francisco, and then his son took it over. He said that subconsciously, even as we are meeting people during the day in our everyday lives, the first thing we are determining is how authentic they are. Because if we do not determine that the person we are meeting is authentic, we're not going to believe what's coming out of their mouths.
Yeah, authenticity is very big for me. In fact, it's one of the challenges that I think I had working in big corporate world because there's a measure and a distance that upper executives can have, or even those who are on the track to becoming upper executives, that strips them of their genuine presence. They speak in that business babble that is just a bunch of platitudes and keywords that are empty and as vapid as their personality. And to me, it's like I just don't connect with that. And probably because the way I am here is the way that I am. And anybody who's gotten to know me and has worked with me will just tell you like this is pretty much what you get all the time. So for me, I don't have that ability to, I don't know, glam it up a
Fake
little
it.
for the executive boardroom. Like I'm just gonna, you'll know when I'm uncomfortable because I don't talk and I'm just listening to a bunch of stuff. But most of the time, if I'm comfortable, this is what you get.
And you know what? To your point, I've worked with a lot of executives, a lot of CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and some of them before they were in the C-suite because they needed some coaching in order to be seen as the leaders that that you knew they were. They just needed the confidence. And always I will direct people down the lane of be yourself. Oscar Wilde is attributed to having said, be yourself, everyone else is already taken, which
I like
I
that.
love,
Yeah.
right? And I will tell you, Ben, the people that I've had the opportunity to work with that have been the most successful presenters are the ones that are their authentic selves. And the most powerful, motivational, accessible, amazing leaders that I've gotten to work with over the years are the ones who are their authentic selves. One example, Ed Lloyd, he retired in 2019. Brilliant, amazing, motivating man. He was the COO/CFO for the U.S. Fund for UNICEF. And I had the opportunity to work with him for about a decade, off and on. And he was himself. And if he was unhappy with something that somebody on his team was doing, they knew it. I mean, he wasn't abusive or anything like that, but he let it be known. And if he
Yeah.
was excited and passionate about something, man, you felt it in your bones, like you got goosebumps. And he would share an idea, and you would be willing to work all through the weekend, just as hard as you could to help him make this thing happen. And it all boiled down to his passion, his smarts, and his authenticity.
And
Yeah.
to that point, like when you talk about presentations and presentations and leadership, those are two things that just kind of are just connected in such a way.
No kidding. People will move mountains for you if they see you treating them like people, you bringing the same enthusiasm to the project as you're expecting to get from them. The other important thing adjacent to that is, and I've helped leaders over the years to craft messages that will share this with their teams, is you need to explain to them in very clear language the why.
Yeah.
We're asking you to do this thing, and here's why. It's not because we said so in a business setting, in any language. That's not going to be a motivator. when your teams understand the why, they will do what you're asking them to do. The message, it's not only you as a leader, that's hugely important, as we're saying, and being authentic and treating people with respect, talking to them in accessible language. It's also crafting the presentation with them in mind, thinking about the things that are going to motivate them to do what you're asking them to do, right? And then sharing it with them in a heartfelt, thankful, appreciative way. That's what gets people to move the mountains you want them to move.
So, if you don't mind me asking, you've worked with a lot of people, with high-ranking executive CEOs, leaders of companies, but then you've also worked with management teams. I'm sure you've worked with individuals who just want to get better at this stuff. So, how does the coaching method change or evolve depending upon that person that you're working with?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Really, the way I come at people is my clients is multifaceted. It's who they are. It's what they're coming to me with in two ways: in themselves and any insecurities or issues they might have around being a presenter. It's also the message that they want to get out and the audience to whom they're delivering that message. Those are the three parts. So I refer to it as coaching if the person needs more help, if you will, with themselves as a presenter. I refer to it as consulting if it's more focused on the message and the audience. The presenter is solid, they like presenting, they're good at presenting, nothing is getting in their way. The verbal, I call them verbal distractors, ums, ahs, you knows, I means, or nonverbal distractors, people fidgeting with clothes, shuffling their feet,
Don't
et
know what to
cetera, et
do with my
cetera.
hands.
Yeah, I get asked that question all the time. So let me just answer it. You should do with your hands whatever you do when you're in animated conversation with friends or family. If you're someone like me who uses your hands when you speak, you should use your hands. If you're someone who does not use your hands in animated conversation with friends and family, you should not use your hands. Do not let a well-meaning presentations coach tell you that you should be using gestures
For those
because
who
you're
are
going
not
to.
watching this, it's that movement you make with your hands where you both palms
You're
out.
you Yeah, or you know what you look like? You look like you're directing the airplanes on the
There
tarmac.
you go. Perfect visual
That's the
for
look.
those
Eh,
listening. Yes.
Yeah, don't do it. It is going to read inauthentic. And the minute you're reading as inauthentic, your audience is not going to trust what you're telling them. You must do you. The more you get comfortable with that, the more your message is going to resonate. So to back to your question, Ben, it's really taking people where they are and then building them and their presentation to the best it can be. It's taking them from where they are originally, step by step, to where they can be. And that's a never ending iterative process.
As we've been talking, I keep reflecting on many speakers. How do you find your inspiration for what makes a good model presenter, and how do we hone in on those things that take us in different directions, that hold us back from being as good as we can be?
Frankly, what I would dissuade your audience here I think it's great to appreciate great presenters, and I do too.
But don't try
But
and
I
mirror
never,
them.
exactly, I never think, oh, I wish I were like so and so, because I can't be like so and so. I can only be like me. Cannot tell you, Ben, how many people I have coached who begin by telling me, I need you to make me funny. I can't make anybody funny. I don't have a magic wand. I just can't. What's interesting is there's a lot of people who've said that to me who are really funny. They just didn't realize they were funny. So there's that. The other thing is, oh my gosh, people who've said to me, I want to be a speaker like. I want to be a speaker like the CEO of my company. He's great. You know, you and I could sit here all day and think of this person, they're fantastic, fabulous. Good for them. They are their authentic selves and they leaned into it. They did the work. They crafted the presentation. And I will tell you the big number one super secret to effective, dynamic, confident, compelling speakers. And it is this: they practice out loud. If everyone practiced out loud, I would not have been in business for 20 years.
Well, I will say the benefit of editing your own podcast, you're practicing out loud. You hear back the things that you want to get better at, and you focus on it. I'll never forget when I one of my other podcasts that I did. I first started it. I had a friend of mine, so we did our undergrad program together, and he one of the classes we took, it was a class on presentations, funny enough. And at the end of the class, we had to give a 5-minute presentation on a topic that we chose. My biggest issue was the ahs and the ums, to the point where people
Okay.
counted them. And I think in a presentation, I had like 70. Like, it was bad.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's bad.
to this day, like the very first podcast I put out, we're still connected on Facebook these many years later. And the first thing he says is, "Oh, you still got those ahs and ums going for you, don't you?" So, yeah, it is one of those things I'm very mindful of.
Well, it's something that can easily be cured. But bottom line, even if you're not recording, you need to practice your presentation out loud. If you're using slides, put the presentation in presenter mode and click and talk through the presentation. Clicking through the slides and thinking about what you want to say is not the same thing. That is not practice. Practice is talking through it out loud.
You know what's funny, Debbie, is I've done some recorded promos for my book. I've done some things where I've purposely recorded, I've scripted it out. I will have to tell you, I do far worse when I am trying to read pre-written scripted. My daughter is an actress, and she can take a script, she can take a couple pages, sit down with them for a little bit, memorize them, and like nail it. And I am so terrible. Like, I cannot do that for the life of me. The when I'm purposely recording it, oh my gosh, the number of times I'm like, no, nope, said that wrong. Oh, I mixed that word up. Like, I can't get through it. I do much better in this free form environment.
And I'm not a big fan of scripts. I know sometimes you have to have a script. You
Yeah.
just do. There are times when you do. But the best thing to do is just in a professional presentation is to click through the slides, go through the presentation 3 or 4 times, clicking and talking through it. It should never come out the same way every time, but you should know what the transitions are going to be. That's the most important part that people don't know. And so then they get up in front of real live people and start talking, and it's a disaster because they had never thought of the transition between their introduction and their first big point. And then they end up saying a bunch of stuff that then, lo and behold, is 5 slides down, but they've already talked about it. So they're saying, as I said a minute ago, it's just a disaster.
Yeah,
And then they hate presenting. It just snowballs.
I've done that. Again, I teach, and oftentimes I'm using slides, and I have definitely talked ahead of my slides on more than one occasion. So definitely, Debbie, let me ask you this: your book is called Nail It.
Nail it.
All right. So, what does it mean to truly nail a presentation?
Great question. Depends on the presentation. So if it's a sales pitch, the nailing it would be getting to the next meeting or whatever that next step is after that pitch presentation that you want to get to, that's nailing it. If you're giving a persuasive presentation to a team or a board of directors, the nailing it is getting the universal approval from the board of directors, getting your team nodding and agreeing to whatever it is. Sometimes if it's a motivational presentation, let's say you're a teacher and you're teaching, which I used to do years ago, I taught GED English. And the first day that we got the students, I would say to them, I need you to pledge to be reading every day for 25 minutes. And I explained to them the why. I said, I don't care what you're reading, but if your writing is going to get better, if your speaking is going to get better, your grammar is going to get better, then the best way to do that is to be reading. You can read whatever you want. You can read Sports Illustrated, People Magazine, whatever it is, but you need to be reading. And I made them raise their right hands and pledge that they would read every day for 20 minutes. Now, do I think everybody read every day for 20 minutes? No, but the power of a hand raise and a pledge, I bet they read 3 times a week for 15 minutes, and it was better than what they were doing before. So that would be nailing that presentation. It's getting the result you seek. That's nailing it.
That is awesome. So, I want to make sure that people not only find you, but something that I read in our preparation for this is that you're offering listeners an opportunity to get a 45-minute consult with you to try and see, improve on their presentation skills. So, talking to those people who are hearing this, who do you think that consultation is best suited for?
Oh, anybody who has an upcoming presentation I'll give you a bunch of different scenarios. First of all, nervous speakers. Go on my website, bespeakpresentations.com, contact us. You can sign up for it's in 30-minute segments, but I'll just be sure there's nothing in the segment at the 30-minute segment after you, and then you'll have 45 minutes because this is an offer to Ben's listeners that I don't typically give out, but happy to do it for your listeners. If you're afraid of public speaking, sign up. My guess is, honestly, I can give you some solid tips and tools that you can get over it. I'm not kidding. In that 45 minutes, it wouldn't even take that long, but then you got to take my advice. If you have a presentation coming up and you've given other presentations and you are not getting the result you seek, let's have a talk. Tell me about what it typically happens. You can even share the screen with me on Zoom and you can show me some of your slides and I'd be able to say, well, I can tell you right now why it's not working because as you and I, Ben, just talked about, you've got a dissertation on your slides and people cannot read and listen at the same time. So whatever your issue is around your presentations, you're going to get a hold of me because something's not working the way you want it to work. If you're not getting the result you seek, please reach out. Let's have a chat about it. And either I can give you ideas just to go from there. Try out the things I'm going to suggest. See if they work. I might say to you, in all honesty, you can try these things yourself, but you might want to consider working with me, that could be what I'm going to suggest. A lot of times I send people away with saying, try these 3 things, and if that doesn't work, then come back to me, because I'm pretty sure this is going to work. So let's talk.
I say for the folks listening, if you're a business executive who has been giving presentations, maybe it's not connecting with the team, it's not resonating with people. If you're looking to raise money, if you're doing pitches, if you're pitching investors and for whatever reason it's not resonating, feel like Debbie's going to be able to maybe dissect a couple of those reasons why, give you a few things to think about, and help you a little bit. Debbie, so people can know where to find you, where to find your book. You mentioned your website earlier. Feel free, let's mention it one more time, or any other places that people can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. First of all, they can get in contact with me on LinkedIn if they would like. I'm on LinkedIn. Debbie Fay, get in touch with me there. My book is on Amazon. It's being sold at multiple booksellers. Reach out to me on my website, again, Bespeak Presentations, plural.com. If you Google Debbie Fay or Bespeak Presentations, I will come up. Please reach out to me if you'd want to email me because you have a question about something that didn't get answered today. Please send me an email. I'm happy to answer your question in an email and would love to connect with you.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much. And thank you for, offering listeners the opportunity, a few extra minutes of your time. I think this stuff is really, really valuable. I think it is one of those things that as you're developing yourself, as you're working on things to be better, be a better communicator, resonate with people a little bit more, this is definitely one of those things. And remember, folks, it's practice, right? You gotta put yourself out there. Even, nobody says you got to put it out on the internet. Put it on your phone, record it, present to your loved ones, your spouse, your children, anybody who will listen to you. But get your voice out there because you can get better at it. Believe me, as a kid who grabbed that mic and was all shaky and nervous and couldn't speak in front of a group of people, to put my voice all over the world now, it gets better. Well, Debbie, thank you again so much.
My pleasure.
For joining the show here, sharing your insight and your wisdom. Folks, for everybody listening, I want to remind you, we are on a mission to hit 100,000 subs in 2026 on YouTube. As of the recording of this episode, we are just past 23,000. So we are well on our way, a little bit behind for Q1, but that's okay. We're gonna make it up in this next quarter here. I encourage you guys, share this podcast with your family, your friends, most importantly, your enemies, because those are the ones who are going to take action on your words. And if you're looking for my book, you can reach out to benolmos.com. You will find that 10 topics to help managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what you do. Everybody, thank you all for checking this out. Loved it. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to DissedMedia, A Startup Story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of DissedMedia Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@dissedmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.